All right, so in this video, I'm going to go over the prismatic fragments that we know about so far. If you want to know more about each class and what kind of abilities and supers they have access to, you can check the channel. I've put out an individual video for Titan, Warlock, and Hunter. All of the aspects and abilities that they're going to have access to, which we know now is very limited. It's not prismatic. Isn't it's not going to be a subclass that's going to be game breaking in the sense of making all other core classes obsolete, because you're still going to need access to certain fragments and aspects and synergies that are only available in those core subclasses. But I wanted to cover the fragments here because obviously the fragments are going to be a huge part of build crafting. They're universal, of course. I'm not gonna really go into class specific, conclusions that we can draw from each fragment, because we're gonna have access to these fragments on all three classes, right? So I'm just gonna cover it all in one video here. Bungie stated here, you're gonna need the extra space with prismatic from day one of the final shape. You'll be able to find or earn a total of 21 fragments, which is a sizable bump over the typical 14 to 16 that we currently have on each subclass. Some are reimaginations or combinations of existing fragments, and some are brand new. Unlike our core damage types, fragments in Prismatic are unlocked for all your characters, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so you'll get access to all of them once you unlock them on one class, which they're saying here like this is something new, but it's not. Like, I know for Stasis, like if you went through the grueling effort of waiting week to week to unlock your fragments, like once those fragments are unlocked, they're unlocked for all classes. I guess maybe in reference to Strand, because with Strand, I think you need to get those Strand currencies from Neomuna or whatever. And I think you need to buy the fragments for each class. But anyways, you're just going to have to do it on one class, and then you'll have access to all of them. So let's go over them here. I wrote some notes already for each of the fragments that we know about. And keep in mind, they've only shared 12 here. There's only 12 faucets. That's what they're going to be called. Faucets, that's the name for the fragments. We only know about 12. There's going to be 21. So, this is very much an incomplete kind of breakdown analysis of what we know, but let's go over it anyways, and I'll try and keep it as short as possible and try not to go too much into theory crafting or anything like that, as much as I'm tempted to, but I'm going to save that for another video. I might put out a speculation build for each class just for fun. So if you haven't subbed to the channel, feel free to do so, and then you can keep tabs on what I'm up to and what kind of videos I'm putting out there. So let's go over this. Faucet of Balance is our first fragment that we know about. These are all in alphabetical order, so I don't know if they've just released to us the first 12 in the alphabetical order, and then the rest we'll find out later. But Faucet of Balance, rapidly defeating targets with light damage grants melee energy, and defeating targets with dark damage grants grenade energy. So we don't know how good this is going to be, how much energy that is. Currently, we have fragments that are similar to this, like on Void. I think it's called Echo of Exchange, and there's another one. So one of them on Void gives you grenade energy with melee kills, and the other one gives you melee energy with grenade kills or damage or something like that. But nobody uses them because it's hardly noticeable. It's like you can get just as much or more benefit just from basic combat mods, and combat mods are not very good compared to most fragments. So we'll see how strong this is. We don't know, but if it is strong, this could potentially make for kind of a Heart of Inmost Light style of ability gameplay loop, and it could revive Heart of Inmost Light for Titans. Because Heart of Inmost Light was nerfed pretty heavily, and now the only real way to actually get that loop going with Hoyle is to have good ability uptime from other sources, so you can kind of kickstart the empowering abilities and the regen rates. So it could potentially work out for that. It is pretty cool to me that you get melee and grenade energy in one fragment, as opposed to one or the other. But yeah, so we'll see. And another thing that this could insinuate here is that, remember, with Transcendence, you need to do light damage and dark damage to build up both of those meters. And once they're both built up equally and meet in the middle, then you have Transcendence, which is kind of like your mini super ability. So Faucet of Balance could be a very good way to build up Transcendence if you have a lot of ability uptime. You know, you do damage with your melee, you do damage with your grenade, and you're building up your Transcendence and feeding your abilities at the same time. So it could be good for that. Faucet of Bravery. Defeating targets with grenades grants volatile rounds to your void weapons, and defeating targets with powered melee final blows grants unraveling rounds to your strand weapons. So that's pretty cool. I mean, immediately my head went to kind of like, oh, well, I could do a void and strand build, you know, being on Prismatic, and you could really benefit from Faucet of Bravery, you know, and have unraveling rounds and volatile rounds at the same time. But I mean, doing both at the same time is going to be an unlikely style of gameplay loop or build crafting, because you're just going to take advantage of one or the other. Like, I mean, if you get both at the same time, what are you going to do? Are you going to switch between two weapons like every second so you can benefit from unraveling rounds and volatile rounds? Like, you don't have a weapon that does both void and strand damage. So you're generally going to rely on whatever your ad clear weapon is, you know, whatever your main bread and butter weapon is for doing, you know, ad clear, basically, because these are ad clear buffs to your weapons, right? Unravel and volatile. So, I mean, yeah, it's like you're basically going to use Faucet of Bravery for one or the other. Like, don't think of it so much as, oh, I'm going to get both going at the same time, because you're going to have to be very conscious about, like, okay, well, I'm going to do a melee kill because I want to use my, Quicksilver Storm for unraveling rounds, right? And then I'm gonna get a grenade kill now so I can have volatile rounds on my machine gun, right? So like it's kind of an awkward thing to play into with both of them, but it could be very good for one or the other. Like you could do you could do lots of stuff with this, right? If you have a grenade spam build, then yeah, you can benefit from void weapons. And if you have a strong melee build, then unraveling. But I would look at it as more as like benefit from one or the other. Then we've got Faucet of Dawn here, which you're going to start with, so you're not going to need to unlock it. Powered melee hits against targets make you radiant, and powered melee final blows make both you and nearby allies radiant. So, I mean, one of the absolute best things about the Solar subclass is the easy access to Radiant, whether it's through Acrobat's Dodge or Ember of Torches on all the subclasses. Like, I mean, Radiant is an absolute staple for pretty much anything endgame based, raid and dungeon boss, just piercing anti-barrier shields. So, you know, we could already anticipate that Faucet of Dawn is going to be on pretty much every single Prismatic build, unless there's like other ways to get Radiant through the new class items and exotic perks and stuff like that. But yeah, expect it to be an absolute staple in the Prismatic subclass. Most people are going to have Faucet of Dawn on. So already this is insinuating that Prismatic's going to be pretty strong because it has Radiant like Solar. Now we've got Faucet of Defiance. Finishers create a detonation that either jolts, scorches, slows, severs, or makes targets volatile based on the damage type of your equipped super, right? So, yeah, it's okay. I mean, I know that people are putting out finisher builds, you know, on YouTube and stuff, but in all reality, like, you don't really see too many people running finisher builds, at least not in endgame. You know, maybe if you're on like Aeons and you're making heavy ammo and stuff like that, you can do some ad clear while you're going around being useful, making ammo. severance enclosure. You know, so I mean, it could have some use, but this is very much a niche fragment, in my opinion. What did I write about? Finishers make elemental explosions. So yeah, it could be amazing on severance enclosure, right? And obviously you're gonna want to choose your super wisely, depending on what kind of subclass verbs you want to apply to the enemies, right? So then we've got Faucet of Dominance. Your void grenades weaken and your arc grenades jolt. Okay, so that's pretty good. Now, considering that we have easy access to Radiant, okay, so now this leads me to think that Prismatic is going to be the absolute best subclass for doing boss damage to dungeon and raid bosses, for example, because there's no other than like Sentinel Titan with weapons of light from their bubble and their Echo of Undermining grenades, you know, having access to a 25% empowering buff or weapon buff, and at the same time a debuff on an enemy. You're stacking 25% damage with a 15% weaken, right? And currently we can get that from the seasonal artifact with Solar with Revitalizing Blast and being Radiant, right? So but other than that, other than the current seasonal artifact and Sentinel Titan, there's no subclass in the game that has access to both Weaken and Radiant in the same subclass, right? Like outside of you know, using exotics and stuff like that. So automatically, you know, even if the build crafting isn't like as synergistic as some as the core builds for like ad clear and just kind of just general content, as far as doing raid and like boss damage, you don't really need a build to do boss damage. You need good weapons and you need good buffs, right? You're going to have all the buffs that you need with Prismatic. You're going to be able to be Radiant and weaken the targets. You're going to be able to stack the most amount of weapon damage, right? And then you're just relying on your weapons. So it means this is build crafting aside. And then your arc grenades jolt. So I mean that's pretty good too. It would have been super cool if they just made it so that grenades weaken and grenades jolt. Well, I mean that'd be overpowered. Never mind. But this does mean that you're going to have to consider, well, which subclass has the best weakening grenades or the best void grenades? Well, obviously, Warlock on Prismatic, we already know they're going to have vortex grenades. So that's going to be a great source of weaken. Titans have suppressor grenades, so it might not weaken the targets for as long because there's no lingering duration with suppressor grenades compared to vortex grenades, but you'll still have access to it. And then hunters have magnetic grenades, so I mean that's, you know, that could be all right. And then arc grenades, like I mean, there's nothing too crazy about arc grenades adding jolt. I mean, this is going to be more of an ad clear type of addition that you're going to want to have with Faucet of Dominance. So just generally a good fragment, but yeah, we'll see how we tie it into our various builds, but I foresee it being used with Radiant on basically every build when it comes to a dungeon and boss damage, right? Especially if you're solo, right? Because then your teammates aren't providing those extra buffs and debuffs for you. You got to do it all yourself. So you're gonna want to use void grenades, and you're gonna want to use Radiant. Okay, so Faucet of Generosity. This says defeating targets while transcendent creates orbs of power for your allies. So if you're an orb of power creating junkie, then this is going to be the fragment for you. The only thing is that like it's, you know, it's niche. You're going to have to be transcendent first, and I guess as you defeat enemies with your transcendent ability or your transcendent ability uptime, because as far as I understand, when you have transcendence, you're going to have access to that mini super ability, but you're also going to have increased ability regeneration for your grenades and melee. So I mean, being transcendent could really, you know, benefit you as far as producing orbs of power. But generally speaking, these types of fragments that we have fragments like this on every subclass already, and they're not commonly used. It really depends on the build. Like I know with Briar Binds, it's using Echo of Harvest, I believe it is. So like defeating weakened targets produces orbs of power. You know, it's good for that build because you're always weakening everything. But generally speaking, you know, there's better fragments to use for build synergy. Now we've got Faucet of Grace, and let me just go through, what else did I write here for generosity? Yeah, it's going to be good for team play. It's going to pair with Echo of Grace, or Faucet of Grace, which is the next fragment here. That says damaging targets with kinetic weapons grants you bonus transcendence energy. Defeating targets with your super grants you and nearby allies bonus transcendent energy, right? So super kills, kinetic kills, and then obviously getting your light and dark kills at the same time. These are all going to help you build up your transcendence quicker. This fragment is going to help you out a little bit there, especially if you're leaning into kinetic weapons like Osteostriga or Wishender or whatever it is that you're using for your bread and butter ad clear gameplay. Super kills. Yeah, okay, so that's pretty much all I wrote there for that note. Faucet of Hope, you're going to start with this one. While you have an elemental buff, your class ability regenerates more quickly. This could be very good for class ability based builds like Abeyant Leaps with Dranger's Lash, which you're going to have access to on Prismatic. Yeah, I can't think of what else, but this can definitely be a staple fragment for class ability builds for sure. Faucet of Hope, depending on the rate. Like if it's anywhere close to the rate of like what Ember of Singeing offers you on Solar, getting those Scorch kills gives you your class ability back super fast. Like if it's anywhere at that rate, then this could be a very, very good fragment. Then we've got Faucet of Justice. While transcendent, your ability final blows explode. So this is kind of like Echo of Expulsion on Void, where your Void abilities cause explosions. So this is going to be that basically for transcendent, but it's while you're transcendent. So I mean, it's not going to be all the time, right? Like you get a grenade kill when you're not transcendent, it's not going to cause an explosion. You have to be transcendent first, and I assume that your transcendent ability will also cause targets to explode. So just generally a good damage fragment. Then we've got Faucet of Protection, which you'll also start with. While surrounded by enemies, you are more resistant to incoming damage. This is, I mean, okay. I mean, it's literally Spark of Resistance from the Arc subclass. I mean, that's not really a reimagination or anything. It's just copy and paste, and I think they put a little bit of pink, and they even kept the look of the fragment the same, which they show it in the screenshots. You can see like clearly there's a fragment that looks exactly like Ember of Torches for Radiant, and there's a fragment that looks exactly like Spark of Resistance for Arc, so I'm assuming that's this one here, Faucet of Protection. It's going to be used, I foresee it being used commonly for endgame activities and GMs and anything where you're going to be in the thick of things. Having extra damage resistance is very good, obviously. Then we've got Faucet of Purpose. Picking up an Orb of Power grants either Amplified Restoration Frost Armor, Woven Mail, or Overshield based on the damage type of your equipped super. Okay, so here again, we're going to have to pay attention to what kind of super we're using and what kind of buffs that we want, right? So if we want a healing-based build where we can just pick up Orbs of Power and get Restoration, then we're obviously going to want to use a Solar super. If we're using a Strand super, we can get our Woven Mail. So that's pretty good. Then we've got Faucet of Ruin, which is our last one that we know about. Whisper, it's basically, okay, this increases the size and damage of burst when you shatter a stasis crystal or frozen target, and increases the size of solar ignition. So it's literally Whisper of Fissures and Ember of Combustion combined from the stasis and solar subclass. So I foresee this being especially a staple for the Hunter subclass, because no matter what your build is on Hunter, your transcendent ability is that solar and stasis thing. I think it's Hailfire Spike or something like that. So it doesn't matter what your build is. Like if you want to make your transcendent ability better on Hunter, you're going to use Faucet of Ruin, basically. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for the fragments. Like I said, I've got some more notes here. We've got 9 more that we don't know about, so we can't draw too many conclusions from this information. What else are we going to get access to? Well, I'm kind of speculating here. We've got so far no fragments that enhance crowd control per se, so we can possibly expect a fragment that's going to do that. We've got no buff extenders or refreshers, which we typically have on every subclass, like Ember of Empyrean, Ember of Solace. We've got no debuff extenders. We've got... are we going to get any other fragments that are that combo stuff, kind of like Faucet of Ruin and Faucet of Bravery, right? Because Faucet of Ruin is the solar and stasis one, like we just went over, where you get Whisper, Fissures, and Combustion in one fragment. And then Echo of, or Faucet of Bravery is the one where you can get Void and Unraveling rounds at the same time on the same build. So maybe we'll get some more unique combos like that. Unmentioned Effects, I'm not sure exactly. Oh, right, Unmentioned Effects, like we don't have any. Well, we do have something that severs, right? We do the finisher for sever, but that's it. But there's nothing in here about blind, arc blind. There's nothing in here about suppressing from void. There's nothing in here about suspend. Like, are we going to get a fragment that extends the duration of suspend? Or maybe does more suspend or something like that. We have nothing that enhances threadlings. We have nothing about tangles. And then we've got nothing about elemental pickups like our current fire sprites and void breaches and ionic traces and, well, the tangles, of course. And stasis shards, right? So there's nothing in here about elemental pickups, so maybe we can expect something about that. And then we've got no like lingering ability extenders, kind of like for vortex grenades, you commonly use Echo of Remnants to make it last 50% longer, or Echo of Spark of Magnitude on arc to make your arc grenades last longer. So we've got no fragments that specify any kind of extension to lingering abilities like that. So we might expect something like that. And then just quickly for potential combos here that I foresee being used with these fragments. There are quite a few fragments here that talk about transcendence. So we've got, like, if you want to do a build that revolves around transcendent ability spam, then you might use something like Generosity, Grace, Justice, and Balance, or a select few of those to combine, because as we already pointed out with Generosity and Grace, defeating targets while transcendent creates orbs. And then you could pick up those orbs from Justice or Balance to get your buffs, like your Woven Mail or your Restoration. Grace is to help you build up your Transcendence faster. And then just quickly, so I'm not getting this wrong, Justice makes your while Transcendent stuff explodes. And then Balance will be a very good way to get your Transcendent up quickly, along with Grace, I think, whatever the one with kinetic weapons, right? But Balance, because defeating targets with light and dark energy builds up your Transcendence quicker, and Faucet of Balance is going to give you extra ability regen while you do damage with light, you get melee energy. You do damage with dark, you get grenade energy, right? So like you can combine up to those 4 fragments to really get your Transcendence up and going. Other combos, Defiant and Dominance, like I already said, went into here. Defiance and Dominance, that's going to be your empowering weapon buff with your enemy debuff for 25% plus 15%. I mean, yeah. Especially if you're solo, you're going to be combining Defiant and Dominance for boss damage. I mean, pretty much, period. And otherwise, you're just not really taking advantage of your weapons, at least, right? If you're doing a lot of just ability spam damage, then you probably don't need Radiant, but you're still going to need Weaken. But typically I would expect Defiance and Dominance to be used a lot together. Then we've got another combo here with Purpose and Protection, which, let's see what, Purpose and Protection. Right, so Protection is going to give you that damage resistance, and then you can combine that with picking up an Orb of Power while you're in the thick of battle to have Woven Mail, so you can have Protection giving you surrounded damage resistance plus your Woven Mail or your Restoration or your Frost Armor or your Amplified to get out of the situation quickly, or an Overshield, right? So you're going to be, like, if you're really going for survival builds where you're being aggressive and you're in the middle of battle, you're probably going to use Purpose and Protection together. And then there's also Purpose and Hope. While you have an elemental buff, your class ability regens more quickly. So to get that elemental buff, you can use Faucet of Purpose, right? You pick up your orb, you've got an elemental buff. No matter which one it is, you've got an elemental buff. You can be amplified, you're getting your class ability back faster. You can have restoration, you're getting your class ability back faster. So, I mean, that's, yeah, those are just what come to mind with the current 9 fragments that we know about. Still 9 yet to be revealed. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, leave a comment below, yeah, you can possibly look forward to a couple of speculation builds, maybe just one for each class. I'm not going to go too crazy with it because a lot of it is, like I said, it's just speculation. We don't even have all the information available to us yet. So either way, I'm super excited. Hope you guys are too, and we'll see you in the next one.